You ever just be thinking thoughts in your head and then randomly you say it out loud and you didn't even notice it?
Yeah.
Well, if you're like me and you're an extrovert, that probably happens a lot. So I think the first time I realized that I thought out loud and not really in my head was in middle school. I think it was 7th grade, and I was in English class, and you know, English is not my favorite subject. If anything, it's probably my least favorite. And I was bored out of my mind. And I'm not gonna lie, I had a crush on this teacher. She was pretty cute. Everyone in the class was taking turns reading like maybe a paragraph of this one story, and I do not like reading. And so basically I blurted out, "This is so boring." And then everyone looked at me, and the teacher went up to me, and basically she gave me a detention. And I think that was one of the first times I realized, oh wait, I said that out loud, and I guess I think out loud. I think one of the two main facets of being an extrovert is where you get your energy, which is mostly through being with a lot of people, especially for me specifically, it's groups of people. And second, how do you process information? And for me, as an extrovert, I process more things out loud. So being an extrovert has its perks. I'm in a job that is constantly with people, and most of the time, I wouldn't say all the time, but most of the time, I'm wired in a way that I gain energy by being in the presence of people and doing life with them and talking with them. So I think because of that, you know, I have the ability to be the life of a party or bring joy to any experience. And I think social settings don't often drain me as much as more of my introverted friends. But I think there are a lot of consequences to being extroversion, especially if you're not aware of your impact on others. First of all, I think oftentimes I fall into this lie that being alone means being lonely. I think up until college, I never really had a concept of what it meant to just be by yourself and be totally cool with that, or even be with just one person and share intimacy through that. My more introverted friends, especially in college, taught me the value of being by yourself and enjoying your own company, or even enjoying a deeper conversation with one person, because I was just so wired in a way that I wouldn't even think twice to do that on my own. Actually, when I think about it, most of my friends are introverted. I think if anything, I get more drained by people who talk more than me, and I feel like I can't have talking space. And this is ideal because I'm just talking to a camera, so hear all my thoughts. I think also one of the growth points for extroverts are being still with God. I mean, I think Jesus modeled this for us when, before reaching the crowds, before healing all the sick and having compassion on so many people, he went up alone to the mountains to pray. And I think when I think about my walk with Jesus, I feel like I'm really strong in places where it involves other believers. Corporate prayer, corporate worship, you know, sharing vulnerably with people. But it's those disciplines like silence, solitude, prayer, just me and God. It's weaker for me, and I've had to learn the value of it and grow in it. I think also, like, when you're not in touch with how you're wired and how others are wired, you can get into conflicts with people.
Me and Aaron, you know, we used to be roommates, just the two of us, for 2 years before moving into the house with Wes and Chris. And he's extremely introverted and I'm extremely extroverted. And so the ways we like to rest after long days of work are very different.
For me, after I'm tired, I'd like to just chat it out with someone. I'd like to spend time with Aaron and talk to him. But for him, it's different. He wants to be alone in his room and restore by himself. When we really weren't in touch with the effects on the other person, I think we weren't really caring for each other, because we would really try to rest in the way that we wanted to rest rather than being aware of how the other person needed to be needed rest. I think there's also a temptation to see your way of doing things as the ideal rather than seeing both extroversion or introversion as both good, both great ways that God has wired people. I think introverts have been such a blessing in my life because of their sense of sturdiness. They enjoyed their own company, and I think I had to wrestle with that. Shout out to Tim John, one of my close friends who I met in college and now lives in DC. He asked me this question: Justin, like, do you enjoy your own company? Do you like yourself enough to be with just yourself? And I couldn't really answer that question because I always felt like I had to please other people and live outside of me instead of just being by myself. Also, we have to realize that introversion and extroversion is a spectrum. And not any two extroverts or any two introverts aren't going to be exactly the same. Even though I am very extroverted, I still have some introverted tendencies, and I'm growing in that. Maybe you have an introverted friend, or you are an introvert, but you gain energy with groups of people, but you like to process internally, you know, like we are all wired differently, and that is okay, and that's a good thing. And lastly, I think we never want to put people in a box or label people and then assume things based on their label. That's when things like this can be very dangerous. You know, I'm a huge proponent of self-awareness tools like Myers-Briggs because it helps you be aware of how God has wired you as a unique person, and it helps you understand how you relate to other people. But I think the danger of that, or why so many people don't like tools like that, is because they've seen it used very oppressively or as a power play. Hey, I know these things about you, therefore, you know, you're gonna act like this or act like that. You know, I'm guilty of that too. Like, by no means am I free of that, but I think that's the danger of over labeling or overusing something like that. So, you know, I think as a young adult, as someone who's 24 years old, I'm really learning who this person, Justin Sebastian, who God has wired, who God has created, who God delights in. A lot of that is as an extrovert. So I think there's a lot of fun being an extrovert. I've also had to realize my limits on life and how I need to go out of my way to serve other people too with that. I think what I want to personally grow in is, instead of just always thinking out loud, what does it look like to kind of exercise those brain muscles where I'm in my head more and being more wise and being more discerning, instead of just responding to everything impulsively externally. Because, you know, when you just speak your mind all the time, you can get yourself in trouble. You can say things that you don't really mean, or you can say things that weren't complete thoughts and then, you know, affect people in different ways. Learned the hard way where I've said something I didn't mean and it hurt someone. Hopefully this is a start of a conversation. I hope that we can all learn more about ourselves and who God wired us to be, and delight in that and worship God because of the way He's wired us. We're not static people. We're constantly changing more and more into God's image. And so we have to realize the person who we are right now is becoming something else. We are becoming more like Christ. The more we unpack what's happening internally, we start to become more and more like Jesus, which is the beautiful thing about having Christ in you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next vlog. Orange, you glad you're watching this vlog?